Hey everyone, it's Tim Totten. Welcome back to the channel. Now, one of the things that I have found about buying a new car, I recently got a Tesla Model 3 that I've been saving for 3 years, is that it doesn't always fit well with my desire to go to the gym every day. And so when I get off the treadmill, I am sweating, and then I get into my nice new beautiful car and I sit on the vegan leather seats, which basically means high-grade plastic seats, and I get this human's juice all over, right? And I got to figure out, how am I going to stop that? Well, I tried tucking a towel and other things. It just didn't work well for me. So instead, I decided to create, with my sewing machine, some type of a cover that I can carry that would go onto the seat, but then soak up any of my hard-won sweat, and something I can just throw in the washing machine and put back in my car when I want to. So it needed to be something simple to do, but also would cover the entire driver's seat. Now, in my car, the driver's seat sort of looks like this, and you'll notice that that I really want to cover from the headpiece all the way down. So how am I going to do that? What I need to do is figure out how to create something that would go over the top and still give me plenty of coverage. What I came upon was basically doing this type of a look. And I figured that if I sort of taper it near the top and then it goes around, that would work. Now, there's a couple ways to do that. And the easiest is probably to cut a shape that is as long as the space of that seat that I want to cover, and then has a flap that flips back over, to the back side, so that it creates like a pocket on the top. But getting these cut exactly would be a little bit difficult. So what I've instead decided to do is to start with that exact same piece, but without any cutouts. And then I'll flip the fabric over, and then I will mark off my points there and stitch along there. And that way now I have a pocketed thing to do. And I think that's gonna work really well. So let's head here to the machine and I'll show you what we need to do. Now, the products that we will need for this are a rotary cutter, definitely a grid so I can measure things out, probably a pair of small scissors, and then some kind of marking pen. I like these silver Sharpies because they go on even dark fabric, and because I have a nice black interior, I'm going to make sure that I use a gray fabric. This is just a blanket I got at IKEA, and some 420 denier nylon packcloth. So let's go ahead and get started. I want to show you how I do this with a smaller sample. It's pretty big to work out. So I've got these two pieces of that same like packcloth, and I chose two different colors to make it real easy for you. So let's just pretend that this is big enough for a seat in my car, probably more like Barbie's dream car, right? So I'm gonna cut them both the same length, and I'm gonna put them right sides together. I'm gonna use the shinier side as the right side. And I am just going to first go to the sewing machine and stitch one end together, just using my regular 1/4-inch seam. You could use a bigger seam if you felt like you needed it, but this will be the end that drops off the front of the seat. And so it's not gonna be an end that we're worried about. It's gonna basically be this end down here, and then we'll be turning it in the material up here later. So let's go over to the sewing machine and get that done. You could pin this if you wanted to, but it's a rectangle square. I'm really just gonna hold the pieces together and stitch. And try not to knock over the tripod as I do it. Now, I should have said you will need some pins eventually. So we're gonna lay this back out over here, and we'll come back to this side. And now what I need to do is figure out how long I wanted that turn to be. Remember, I said we're gonna turn all of this. So I'm gonna mark that off. Now here, since we're doing it in a scale, I'm just gonna measure down a specific distance, the same on either side. And I'll use my device here to do that. And in fact, I will just mark it with my pen, and it's going on the inside, so it doesn't matter because it's not going to get seen, which is great. We'll come to the other side and I'll do the same thing. And I'm just using the width of the ruler here, but you would actually get a measurement so you could do it. And like I said, I use that silver Sharpie because you're not going to see that later on. This is the point where we're going to fold these. Now, we're not going to fold them on the outside wrong side to wrong side, because then this would get trapped inside when you flipped it all over. We actually have to fold it back the other direction. But we also want a way to stitch this back together. So in fact, what I'm gonna do to close it later is I'm gonna sort of stitch a certain distance from each side and already get that done, but not stitching the sides up. And it'll make sense in just a minute. So I'm gonna go back to the machine and do that real quick. I'm only gonna sew a couple of inches to leave a decent opening in the middle so I can close it again. Now, if you're using just standard fabrics for this, then you can then go to an iron if you're not gonna worry about melting it or something, and you could actually iron this open, because you wanna get, later on when you're gonna close this, you want these pieces to be opened. You wanna be able to open this, if I can get my finger in there. You're gonna be able to open this seam later and stitch these back together, if that makes sense. But I'll teach you a really cool ladder stitch to do that with. So I've got this, let me put it back the way we were doing it. I've got this pulled out, and I am now going to literally tuck this inside, do some origami. So I'm not gonna fold it to the front. I'm not gonna fold it to the back. I am going to tuck it inside here. And I'm gonna fold that until I find that point. See those points that we had done? So I'll get it right to that point. Now here's where it would be helpful to have some pins. And I like to pin out to the outside so I can take them out quite easily. So I do that one there. I'm gonna fold this one, same way, find the point, and I'm putting that mark. I'm putting the mark right here on the edge where it's now folded. And I'm gonna do the same thing with the purple. I'm gonna then let it come back. And what I'll do is fold that right on that line. Now, preparation is always more important. You should take a moment and do a little bit of prep. Don't try to rush this through. We're going through pretty fast. We've been doing this actual sewing part for less than a couple of minutes, so it's not like we have to rush. So now this will flatten out in here and it'll flip back together. And then now you see we've shortened it quite a bit, but I have now two folded edges together. I can put those edges right here together, put a few more pins in, maybe move some of the pins, and now I'm going through all the layers, going through all 4 layers of that. Same thing, I'll take out one of these pins and put it back in through both of them. I'll move the other pin down. Now I'm gonna move that down here because, as you'll notice, we now have a folded edge. See how that's stitched back this way? So we'll have wrong side against right side, wrong side against wrong side, right side against right side with the wrong side on the back. I'm gonna go through here and pin all of that together down here at the bottom. And then the last thing I wanna do here is sort of transfer my mark of where those pieces come together. Transfer this area to the outside. So I'll find where all of that is underneath and just put that mark on top on the purple. I could also just have used this device again and put it here and found the space, but I would have to take off that 1/4 inch, remember, that I sewed. All right, I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side, which is I'm gonna make sure it's laid out flat. And here's a good example to see. You wanna make sure that all those pieces are flat in there. You've gotta flatten it out. And then I will do it from the green side this time so I can put it at the top. I'll put one there at the end. Move one of these pins and move that pin as well. Now there's a lot of preparation, and I need to go ahead and, on the same as the purple side, go back there and transfer where all of those colors cross. I need to transfer that mark to the outside of the purple. So I can see it from the edge here, and I can do that. Now that's gonna let me know where I need my measurement to be. Now, there's a couple things you could do with this. You could, I wanna turn it this way just so you can see if you're looking on it, at it on a specific type of computer. Obviously the top of my seat is sort of rounded. So I can do one of 2 ways. I can make it look like this, and this is a sample I made earlier, where it's very pointed, almost like the top of a coffin. And this is the easiest way. Or if I want, I can actually round this, right? And now to do that, that's a little bit of a higher skill. So you could just come through here and say that you know that you want, you know, the centerpiece is going to be, this right now is, let's see, this is right at about 10 inches. So my center point is at a 5, and I could say that I'm gonna go 2 inches over. I could draw straight lines here and just do that coffin shape. Or if I know this is how wide it is and it's gonna stretch out a little bit, I could choose to come in and do an arc that would give it a nicer image later. So since I do already have a sample made with the coffin, I'm gonna make this one look a little more swoopy. And the way I'm gonna do that is I'm going to, obviously it'll be straight across and the line would be straight down on each side. So let's do that straight down on each side. But then maybe, and what I'm doing is going from point to point as they go off of the fabric. But I want this rounded, so maybe I'll round out the top here. Just round it, don't do too much, just kind of eyeball how you would round that off. Rather than coming at a straight line, you can round to that center point. So let's go to the machine and I'll show you how I would do that. And obviously I'm doing it on a smaller piece, but if you were doing this on a much bigger item, then of course that shape is going to be more forgiving because you have a much wider, you know, circle to go. So I'm going to come across here. Now you can stop and take your pins out. Somebody yelled at me in another video because I sewed over the top of pins. And to be honest, I don't mind. I wear safety glasses. They're actually glasses so I can read. Now you're not going straight across the whole top of this. So I'm going to go off the edge there, come back. I wear glasses and I'm also careful, and I've been doing this for many, many years. So I'm not too worried. Now you'll notice that I did some, I backed up and went back. I'm using a lever on my machine, and the lever is over here to back myself up as I'm sewing. And that's an important feature to do because you want to really stick those in. Now I have to leave some space in here because I have to be able to turn these to each other. All right, so let's show what that looks like when we actually go back over. This is what I have now. And you may want to, this is the area where you would trim this. Now you can use scissors if you want. I'm gonna use a rotary cutter, and I'm gonna make sure I leave another 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I'm gonna line up on my rotary cutter. I'll bring it a little closer so you can see this. Ooh, let's get you in the right position. On my rotary cutter, I'm gonna line up the 1/4 inch line on the rotary cutter. And that's just the first line inside from the edge with the actual stitch line, so that when I cut on the outside, it leaves a 1/4 inch of fabric, okay? Same thing and I could just follow that half circle around if I chose to. We'll do the same thing on the other side of this, leaving the 1/4 inch. And if you feel more comfortable doing this with a pair of scissors, or you may want to actually, you may want to turn it first before you actually cut it. Might make it a little bit more comfortable. Might have a little more comfort doing that. You see the bottom of my tripod there, isn't that cute? All right, so I now have those pieces together, and you'll see I have this thing, and you go, well, but what about these side edges? These have to be sewn in, so I'm gonna sew those real quick right down either side at my machine. Didn't think about that a second ago, did I? In fact, that would be faster to do this at the same time as you're doing these curves. You could start at the curve and just come straight down if you chose to. But even I make mistakes. All right, so we're getting back to, now you're thinking to yourself, well, where are you gonna turn this whole thing around? And that's why I left the hole at the top. I have to be able to turn this inside out. And obviously on a bigger piece, you'd leave a much bigger hole to be able to turn that. So I'm gonna take the entire thing and shove it through. And I'm basically just completely, like I'm completely birthing it out of itself. This is the same kind of thing you would do if you were making like pillows or a teddy bear or something you wanted to stuff, and you just would leave an opening so you could turn it. And I've made a lot of teddy bears in my lifetime. My first company I ever created was called Treasured Memory Bears. And it was making bears out of people's clothing that they would give us. And it was quite a lovely, I really enjoyed doing that for people so they could make a memory out of an item that they had worn. All right, so I'm still pulling this through. As you'll see, you just have to keep birthing it, so to speak, out of that hole. So I'm still doing that. So now what's happening is now I've gotten it in through that first hole we made, and then now it's birthing it back out through that part where I had stitched across the top. Remember I had that sort of square where I had only stitched a couple of inches. Let me pull this out somewhere so you'll see. So that's what we're coming out of right now. Can you see it? We're coming out of that. So this one you really do have to, you almost have to rebirth it. Birth it twice, but don't go backwards. Keep going forward. And again, this is like an 8th scale of what I would normally make for this, obviously, so it's not gonna fit on anybody's car. All right, so now you'll see it starting to come out. And I know that because there are all of these nice, pretty areas where the two fabrics are stitched together, and there's no raw edges or anything showing. Woo. We are getting it going. Now, I will tell you what people think of doing all the time. They always want, when they have to point these areas out, they always want to put a pair of scissors into this thing and shove it. And you just can't do that. Please don't do that. You have to get like a turner or a bone turner or a blunt end of a pen, don't you? So I'm gonna use this pen as double duty, and I'm gonna put it all the way in here, and I'm gonna scrunch all of this stuff up and use it to point my ends out. Now if this was something more intricate, that maybe really was a car seat cover for a Barbie car or clothing for a doll, you might wanna get a bone turner or a bamboo turner to do that, but here I'm not as worried. Now you'll see this is the end that's going to go over the end of the seat down toward the floorboard, and up here is what's going to go onto the headrest. And you'll notice because of the way we've turned it now, if I hit this right, it's creating that head pocket we talked about. And in fact, I seem to have pulled the stitching out a little bit here on this particular one. So yeah, next time I will give it a little better stitching. But that sort of rounds that end for us. And then all we have to go through, because now this is the part that's gonna go facing me, sitting on the seat's here, and that goes over the headrest of the seat and then lays down. I just have to go at this point and sew this piece together. Right? Right? So I'm gonna teach you, in another video, I show how to use a ladder stitch, where you can just YouTube a ladder stitch and you would go through and stitch that. Or if you want to, you could just flatten those pieces together, whip stitch them if you wanted. Or, and this would be fun, you could just go top stitch everything right around here, give it a nice cute stitch. So let's do that. We'll actually top stitch this one, and I'll show you how to do a ladder stitch at another point. I want to twist this the right way so you can look at it. So I'm going to take this to the machine, and I'm going to stitch these two pieces together to flatten it, to top stitch it. So I'm kind of getting it creased in here with my hands, and then I'm going to come back and run a stitch right along that edge. And I'm going to do it in such a way so that you can see it. So let's come over here and have you see it coming through the machine. I'm going to go right over to the edge here and do it right at the edge of the fabric. Now I would pick, if you were doing this for an actual thing and the color wasn't black, you would want to pick a coordinating thread color. And there you go. I have now put a nice stitch on the edge there, and that is ready to go into my car if I had built a gigantic regular one, or apparently into Barbie's car. There you are. All right, so I have finished creating that. It's either a really weird Halloween costume or a blankie for Barney, but it's gonna go onto a seat in a car, go down, lay down across the front, the full version. And you know what? Wouldn't it be easier if I just showed it to you in my car right now? So I'll show you the one that I made. Follow me. Hey, it's Tim Totten, and as promised, I have that special gym seat cover that I created for my my driver's seat, and it has two sides. It has a nice soft side, which is this is actually a blanket from IKEA that I bought pretty cheap. It also has this side that's made out of what we call fluid blocker. It's a fabric we use in one of my businesses. It's a nylon pack cloth. It's completely impervious to fluid. So let's say if I was going to be at the gym, I might want the absorbent side so that I make sure I don't have any sweat pouring anywhere. But if I came back from the beach and we're sandy, I might want to use this black side so it wouldn't stick into the material, and then I could just shake it out later. But I think I'll set it up with the softer side out, the absorbent side, and it's got sort of this hood that fits here, and I'll put that over the top of the seat. Now I did piece this in the middle, right at the joint where the seat back and the seat bottom get together. And this allows me to sort of shove this back in there and leave enough fabric so that I don't, crush it as I get in and out of it. And of course, then I can tuck around all the sides here if I want to make it really particular, but I'm really just looking for the few minutes that it takes to get from the gym to my house. And so now I have room to be able to not get anything on my vegan leather interior. Wow, look how comfortable it is. It even goes down across the front. Now let's say I've done that and I am at home, and now I'm gonna wash all of my clothes from the gym. Well, the great part about this is if you got really sweaty or really dirty or wherever you were, you can always roll all that dirt and sweat stuff right toward itself like this, and as you roll it up, you can then tuck it into that hood so it's not going anywhere. And that's the cover that I made, and just, I don't know, this took maybe about 15 or 20 minutes for me to make this way. And I've made about 5 or 6 of them so that I don't have to wash them all right away. I have them for the gym. And you can even do them in crazy colors. You can do them with different designs on them. But this is our seat cover. And hey, watch the beginning of the video, try it out. If you find something really cool, leave a comment down in the section below and show off what you've done. All right, well, I could go to the gym, or I could get something to eat. There.